Is RISC-V overhyped? Question mark.
This video is sponsored by Silverstone, the leader in small form factor power supplies for over 10 years. The SX1000R Platinum is the company's SFX 12V 4.0 update to the pioneering SX1000 Platinum released in 2020. It now includes the Gen 5 12V high power connector along with ATX 3.0 performance updates and quieter operation. Pick up the SX1000R Platinum today and give your small form factor PC the power supply it needs to tackle the latest CPUs and GPUs.
Hey Internet, Gordon Ung with PCWorld here. We are at Computex 2023 and of course we're in Silverstone's booth. But I want to talk about something that I always hear from a lot of the fans all the time, and that is RISC-V fans, because you can't mention x86 or ARM without RISC-V super fans or fanboys chiming in the comments saying something about you should be talking about RISC-V. So I have Dr. Ian Cutress, Tech Potato, by the way. Go over there, like and subscribe, click the bell so you get those notifications. But Dr. Ian Cutress is going to explain to me, is RISC-V overhyped, and why does everybody keep bringing it up?
We have a very vocal minority, but I think RISC-V is important for the industry. We've had this dichotomy for so long. x86, ARM, in comes this relatively new player. It's still very nascent in its design, but they have established a very strong, a very passionate community around this instruction set that you can modify, which it's a double-edged sword, right? People are looking at RISC-V as the royalty-free version of ARM, especially in the microcontroller space. And with that, they can go ahead and add things like specific AI instructions to the architecture, build an architecture, build a chip, and then tape that out, put it in a product. The problem with that is the fragmentation, right? ARM's kind of had this issue with fragmentation. The ARM business model is we will either sell you a core or an architecture license, and you can build whatever microarchitecture you want out of it. And there's that level of fragmentation that could come from that. ARM created, at least in the server space, a standard called SBSA3, which allows that everybody who's making a server chip essentially has to build to that standard, and software can guarantee to run on any chip that supports that standard. With RISC-V, it's very different. There is no equivalent. There are some sort of standards with regard to instruction set, but if you're doing something really custom for your use case, that's where the fragmentation lies. However, that may not matter. So I said RISC-V microcontrollers. That's where we've seen most of the use right now. We're talking a little core inside your SSD that does management. Nobody's ever going to see that or program that aside from the people developing it. And that's kind of the area where we're seeing these RISC-V cores go into now. Nobody's doing a sort of large-scale, commercially available, anybody can program for it, RISC-V design. We've seen the guys at Sci-Fi who license IP. They've built in dev boards that people can use with their cores. And that runs Linux, and you can find videos and that. I've got one of those boards. It's still in its box. Sorry, James. But if you're just speaking about that purely embedded, nobody will ever program for it market, then it makes perfect sense because you're saving money, you're building arguably a smaller core, which may be at lower power, and you can get it to do exactly what you want with no overheads that may come with a Cortex M0 or an M0 Plus. We're starting to see RISC-V hit the extreme performance level. There are two main companies to be careful of. One is TensTorrent, headed up by Jim Keller, who's made chips for AMD, Apple, Tesla, Intel. The other one is called Ventana Micro. They're both doing these sort of massive 100+ core high performance chips. I can speak a lot more to TensTorrent because, for full clarification, they are one of my clients. But they've hired the guy who built Apple M1, one of the lead CPU architects. So they're going into a market with chips, with IP, and with AI acceleration, all on RISC-V. So we're getting this dichotomy of super high performance, super embedded microcontrollers, and then eventually whether they'll come down to the middle is questionable. As it relates to the modern consumer, you don't have to worry.
Why?
So because it's not coming anytime soon. It may be in products that you own, but it will never be in products you have, or never be in a software sense, something you have access to, for now.
Embedded, so basically embedded is fine, you can't see it, it's opaque to you, but not something you have to I need to install the OS on.
No. So, I mean, you could argue smartphone you never need to install the OS on because it comes pre-shipped. And for most people, that's their interface point with ARM today, unless they buy an Apple M1, M2 MacBook. RISC-V, if it was going to come into the consumer market, it would probably come in that same way, right? So we're seeing ARM in the data center today through chips like Graviton 3 with Amazon, Ampere is doing their Ampere 1. So it's not an NVIDIA product, that's actually a server company called Ampere.
Oh, okay.
Huawei still has their chip. I think Alibaba has a chip now in the enterprise. So it's starting to appear there, and we're only starting to see notebooks that are Windows-based, for example. It's RISC-V getting there is still very much a 10, 15-year process, and it's likely to come from the server side down.
So and I do want to make sure people understand this, because people don't understand with ARM x86, you can't just make it. Somebody's got to pay for it. You got to pay. Yeah. You have to pay ARM. You have to pay either Intel or AMD or VIA, I guess. Is RISC really that open that people?
Well, yeah. So with x86, you have Intel and ARM defining the architecture, and that's fine. With ARM, you have ARM, who are defining what the base architecture is, and everybody goes and offers and licenses that. With RISC-V, you have RISC-V International, which is more like an industry consortium of players. But then you have other companies that are like Sci-Fi or TensTorrent, where you can license IP cores from. And so there's kind of nobody steering the helm in the same way. That allows it to be open. It allows especially researchers or companies, again, in the embedded space, to go and decide, we want to do this specifically, and nobody's going to tell us it's wrong. As long as it works from our point of view, then it works. There's no additional certification that needs to go on top of that with, say, if you have an ARM license. And you're not paying that extra fee. I think the whole Qualcomm ARM lawsuit thing that's going on, and the threat of ARM changing its licensing fee structure, has got people a little worried. And that's pushing them to look at RISC-V as alternatives, where they might use ARM cores. Also, the entity list between the US and China, that's causing a number of Chinese companies to also look at RISC-V for their solutions. So there's more of a push now for RISC-V than there ever has been, or there ever was for ARM. As a result, we do get a vocal minority talking about it, and it does generate headlines when there's a chip. Intel's making a Horse Creek chip that should be available by the end of the year, we hope. That's in collaboration with Sci-Fi, RISC-V IP provider, for dev platforms. It's not going to be their latest and greatest CPU. Intel's actually using it as a way to improve their Intel 4 process, because it's a really tiny chip and you can yield it very well. But it's a step on the right direction for RISC-V adoption in some sense. Is there a critical use case? Is there that thing that's going to drive the market? Probably not. It's going to be lots of little players doing lots of little things. And as a consumer, I don't think we necessarily have to think about it in that sense for a long, long time yet. It's how we think about ARM today. We may have to think about RISC-V in, say, 10, 15, 20 years.
Wow.
But ARM's not... there are things that the RISC-V International could do, such as create universal standards for platforms. Not there yet. So
it just seems like when you're talking 10 years, that is, in technology, that is... I don't even know where we could be in 10 years, so...
Yeah.
It's an existential threat to, x86 in a way, because I will tell you, if you go and read the comments, in fact, if you're watching this video now, I will tell you say RISC-V, the third time you say it, RISC-V fans will show up and start talking about RISC-V.
Calista Redmond comes to you through the mirror.
But I mean, it just sounds like it's not as imminent as all the commentators are making it out to be. So
it's important for very specific markets, and people in those markets, it's become a lifeline, or a new revenue stream, or a way to save money. So for them, it's really important because we're talking millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Right.
For general consumers, not so much. But then our audiences are a mixture of consumers and engineers, so you're going to get those comments. Yeah.
And that, I think the other interesting thing to me, because ARM can get fragmented, it is already there. It sounds like RISC-V can get fragmented. x86 generally, everything runs everywhere. It may run slowly, but it'll run, right?
Well, I mean, so in x86 land, we have situations where different cores support different instructions, and the question is there a fallback if you have a workload that's compiled for AVX 512 or some of the new instructions, or maybe it's something that Intel supports and AMD doesn't? Some of those weird FMA4 or whatever they were instructions. There is some fragmentation there, but by and large, because they have a strong cross-licensing agreement, through thick or thin or legal implications, they have a cross-licensing agreement. It means that they're both kind of going along the same tracks. At least in the ARM ecosystem, ARM can grab its partners by the horns and drag them into a new era. So for example, they've just gone 64-bit only on their latest new ARM cores that are going to be in smartphone flagships next year. RISC-V doesn't have a player in that, aside from say RISC-V International itself, doesn't have a player that can drag the whole industry by the horns. And I kind of think that's by design, which will either be the success or the death knell of, or it could be the limiting factor of widespread adoption to it, but it could make a lot of people very happy.
Right, because freedom always sounds great until it turns into chaos, right? That's
yeah.
So that's very interesting. So, So it sounds like I don't have to worry about it now because I'm not going to get a RISC-V PC or my laptop any day now, but maybe one day.
If you're the sort of person who plays around on basic small form factor Linux systems, like a System 76 notebook or something, or these small business computers that are coming out, SBCs, we will likely see RISC-V based ones of those running some form of Linux, either maybe a Rocky or an Arch or something, because they kind of already exist, and that could become a thing. And you may see workplaces that are running thin clients, and the thin client is RISC-V. That could very well be a thing, for sure. Or Chromebooks, a Chromebook RISC-V. That, I think, the point at which it will hit consumers. Chromebook RISC-V. Right. There we go. You heard it here first.
Yeah, you heard it here. And actually, I'm going to close this out because he's got stuff to do at Computex 2023. But I want to hear his RISC-V joke. You want to hear it too, so.
It's not a joke, really. It's RISC-V. E is the fifth letter of the alphabet, so maybe it's a bit risky.
But bum. Anyway, to check out more cool coverage from Computex 2023, I'm laughing inside and crying right now.
That's just because you're tired.
Come back to PCWorld's channel. Of course, go to PCWorld.com. And also, go to Tech Potato channel, like and subscribe, because Dr. Ian Cutress is just one of the wonderful resources the community has, so keep him supported.